probably one of the first bridges over the Berg River, and it connected Cape Town with the Paarl. So this was an important route. Welcome back to Vanner's View channel. Yes, I'm back on the road. Yeah, I'm here next to the Lady Loch road that leads up to Wellington. Oh, just look at those beautiful, beautiful mountains. Sure, it is great to be back on the bike. It was about now a month and a half ago that I did the trip for the West Coast series. Thank you very much to everybody that has commented and encouraged me and asked questions on that trip. It was really an overwhelmingly positive response to the series of videos I've posted. I'm just glad to be back on the bike and to start a series of trips over the next 3 days that I hope you will find very interesting. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'm just outside the beautiful town of Wellington, and you can see the town of Wellington appearing here over this ridge. This is the Lady Loch Road, and I thought it good to start at the Lady Loch Road because there is some real historic significance here. This Lady Loch Road leads to a bridge that goes over the Berg River here in Wellington. And this is really a very important bridge. Now, Lady Loch was the governor's wife at the time that this bridge was built. And it was built in 1853, first as a wooden bridge. And it represented a very important bridge over the Berg River, because at that time it was probably one of the first bridges over the Berg River, and it connected Cape Town with the Paarl. So this was an important route, and it is today a provincial heritage site. When the bridge was then replaced in 1910 with a steel bridge, which became the first all-steel bridge in South Africa. So I find this interesting. The Berg River, of course, a very important river in this area. It originates there in the Drakensberg Mountains and the Franschhoek Mountains, and it runs all the way to Velddrif. You will remember in the previous series we also visited Velddrif, and there the marina area there at Port Owen, where the Berg River then runs into the Atlantic Ocean. So it starts here. It's almost 300 kilometers long. So yeah, that was an important bridge, the Lady Loch Bridge. We are now approaching the town of Wellington. Now, Wellington is quite an historic town. It was already established in 1688 by the French Huguenots, and those days it was called the Limit Valley, or the Limit Valley, simply referring to the limit of the frontier at that stage. But in 1840 it was renamed to Wellington by Sir George Napier, who was the governor at the Cape at the time, and that is of course in honor of the Duke of Wellington after he successfully defeated Napoleon in 1815 at Waterloo. Now, the town of Wellington was a very important town in those days because it represented the place where people crossed into the interior from the Cape. Now, later the town of Wellington was called the Wagenmakers Valley, or the Wagon Makers Valley, simply because many wagon makers settled in this area, and yeah, it represents probably then also a very important transport hub, because this is also the place where people that wanted to travel to the interior of South Africa, and of course also in the late 19th century with the diamond rush in Kimberley, people departed from here to get to the interior, of course, through Bainskloof Pass. Then later the town was renamed to Wellington. Yeah, so we're now getting closer to the business district area of Wellington. The GPS wants to take me on a turn to the left here, but I think I'm just going to go straight. because there are two places that I would just like to make a quick stop. There's of course many historical sites. You can imagine for a town that was already established in 1688, that there's many buildings that can be of interest, but you know me, I like to look at the churches, and this is the first of the sites that I just would like to make a quick stop here in Wellington. And I can already see the church peeking out there in front. Now we are getting quite a nice view. This is a spectacular piece of architecture. Now this church was already built in 1840, so it coincides with the date that the town was established. So 1840 the church was built, but the steeple was actually built in 1891. So let me just make a U-turn here. That seems to be the way to get to the church. And then maybe just an interesting piece of history here is that one of the most famous reverends here is the Reverend Andrew Murray. He was a reverend here for 35 years. So let's just make a quick stop here at the church. So I now successfully made the U-turn, but I think it looks like we can make a stop here in the churchyard. Yeah, well, here one should get a proper look at the church. Let's go and have a look. I made a quick stop here next to the church, the Mother Church, the Dutch Reformed Church in Wellington. Yeah, it's quite a beautiful building and certainly one of the oldest buildings in town. As I mentioned, the steeple was only built in 1891, but the main body of the church was already built in 1840. So let's just have a bit of a closer look, and I also want to just go and have a look at the front facade of the church, because there is a famous statue of the Reverend Andrew Murray. Let's go and have a look. I think this is a pepper tree where I made the stop. Let's just have a look at the church. So it's quite a big church building. But yeah, here from the side, next to the beautiful Straditias, one can get a view of almost the whole church. It's certainly not a small church. Beautiful. So just making a walk here next to the extremely busy main road of Wellington. You can see 1840 to 1890 are the dates on the steeple. And here is quite a prominent statue of the Reverend Andrew Murray. Now this was now an interesting look at this beautiful church, but let's continue. As I said, I would like to visit another important historical site here in Wellington, and that is Victoria Jubilee Park. But it seems I just need to first make a U-turn again. Okay, all good. Then the street that I need to make a left turn is actually Church Street, so it's not far to go. Let me just make the left turn here. So Church Street is the street that then runs away, directly away from the church or to the church. I'm not exactly sure where Victoria Jubilee Park is, but the GPS says it's only about 100 meters or so. Yeah, here on the right hand side is Victoria Jubilee Park. Let me just make a turn here. Yeah, so here we can see the park in front of us. So here on the left hand side we can see Victoria Jubilee Park. Let me just make a U-turn here in front. So Victoria Park was established in 1883, of course in honor of Queen Victoria, who was the monarch of England at the time. And then in 1897 she celebrated her 60th year of reign, and it was her Diamond Jubilee, and the park was renamed to Victoria Jubilee Park. But of course in 1899 Queen Victoria passed away and was succeeded by King Edward VII. And in 1902 this arch was named after him in honor of King Edward VII, the Coronation Arch. This arch is a very prominent historical site because in 1970 it was actually declared a national heritage site in South Africa. Yeah, interesting. Beautiful. Okay, but let's continue. We are going to depart from Wellington now, so let me just get into this busy Church Street again. So we are going to exit Wellington here from Church Street. Yeah, so we are getting now to the outskirts of Wellington. Yeah, Wellington, of course, also well known for the educational colleges you do get here. So there's a bit of a student presence as well. But where are we going today? Yeah, I've not even spoken about the destination of this trip. Our final destination for the trip today is the beautiful town of Tilbach. But to get to Tilbach, we are going to probably ride one of the most beautiful and historic roads in the Cape, and this is crossing over Bainskloof Pass to get from Wellington to Tilbach. Yeah, so you can just see the towering mountains there in front, and yeah, this was a significant barrier for crossing from the Cape area to the interior of South Africa for, of course, many years. And the Bainskloof Pass was one of the first passes that allowed this access through the mountains. And that is why, as I mentioned, the town of Wellington was such an important town. Yeah, a transport town, and it was even called the Wagon Makers Valley or the Wagenmakers Valley for some time. I'm excited about this trip for today. I think we are going to see beautiful things. As you can see, the weather is absolutely perfect in this, well, early morning ride. It is a bit chilly, but I think it's going to heat up quite nicely for this time of the year. We are now in the first month of winter, and today is the 14th of June. So one is not always guaranteed to have this good weather. So you can see, here we are starting the Bainskloof Pass. There are some height restrictions here, 3.68 meters, and that is simply because in Bainskloof Pass there are some, well, there's at least one overhanging rock that you need to pass underneath, so that makes it exciting. But yeah, there you can see in the neck area of the mountain there, that is where Bainskloof Pass is taking us. Enjoy this ride with me. I think this is going to be spectacular. Yeah, from here one gets a beautiful view of the mountains, and you can even make out the southern parts of the pass from here. But yeah, fortunately this will not be visible on the camera. Yeah, this pass is very popular with motorcycle riders, but of course also cyclists. So one should expect to see some cyclists on this road as well. Some beautiful bridges immediately, even when we start the pass. Yeah. And this sign says leopards for 23 kilometers. Now that is interesting. So of all animals that can threaten you on this road, the leopard is then the one we are warned about. So yeah, I will keep my eyes open for leopards, although I suspect it will be very unlikely for us to see a leopard. The climbing has started. It is a relatively easy gradient, but it is now continuous climbing for quite some time. I mean, we are about 16 kilometers away from the summit of the pass. But yeah, nice sweeping bends to to take. Just a motorcyclist's dream to ride these kind of roads with the backdrop of the mountains. So beautiful. Yeah. Simply beautiful, beautiful trees. Some old trees here next to this road. Yeah. But we have climbed quite a bit now already, so we can already have quite interesting looks back here at the valley, back to Wellington. Beautiful. Quite a lot of pine trees that's also here on the lower slopes of the pass, are almost forming pine tree forests. Relatively sharp bends, some parts. I don't know if you can see on the GPS here in front, but yeah, the roads are twisting and turning. That's what one likes to see. If you want some adventurous roads. How beautiful is this? We can still see some autumn leaves. Although it's now the first month of winter, there are some persistent leaves that still will fall off, but it just makes for the most beautiful colors in the early morning sunshine. Yo. Yeah, so one can see there on the other side where the pass is now continuing, and also some of the stonework that was required to build this part of the pass. So this southern part of the pass, well, although it's beautiful and you get beautiful views back to Wellington, it's not really regarded as the most spectacular part of the pass. It's actually once you cross the summit that you get to really interesting rock formations, and probably the more difficult part of the pass that had to be built. Yeah, but I'm enjoying this ride on the Bainskloof Pass. How good is this? But maybe just a bit of more history of this pass. So this pass is really old. I mean, it was started to be built already in 1849, and it was completed in 1853, and the road was officially opened in 1854. And this is now the main pass or road that connects Wellington with Ceres and the interior of the country, and the whole pass is about 18 kilometers long. Yeah, and it was built by master road builder Andrew Geddes Bain. He built many passes and roads in South Africa, and he did this with convict labor. And originally when this pass was built, it was of course built for horse-drawn traffic, but yeah, it's long since been tarred, and it's a very easy ride for cars and so on. But this pass, the importance of this should not be underestimated, because for more than 100 years this pass represented the main road to the interior from Cape Town, because it was only about 100 years later, since this pass was built, that the Bainskloof Pass probably surpassed it in importance. Now, the Bainskloof Pass was built in 1940 to 1946, so during the Second World War. But today this pass is declared a national monument, the whole pass, simply because it is of such historic significance, and probably the important role it played for such a long time to be the way to connect Cape Town with the interior. So one can probably ask, is this the oldest pass in South Africa? And the answer is no, actually not. It is close, because the oldest pass, also built by Andrew Geddes Bain, is the Montague Pass. There, crossing from George over the Taniqua Mountains, that pass was built in 1840. So this pass was started to be built not much after this, so it is one of the oldest, but not the oldest. But I find it quite interesting that it is significant, because it is named after this master road builder, Andrew Geddes Bain. So this is probably one of his signature passes, and one of the most prominent and important ones that he has built. This is an extraordinarily beautiful sight. We will probably soon turn away, because this is still the southern side of the pass. Just look at how the edge of the road has been stacked with stones, just to demarcate where the edge is, because you don't want to go over the side there. I'd almost feel like we are getting close to the summit of the pass. No, it certainly provides for sweeping views. So if you are looking for the parts of the Bainskloof Pass where you get the best views, the southern side, the Wellington side, that is it. Yeah. Just beautiful, beautiful valleys down below. We are now close to the top, or at the top of Bainskloof Pass. There are some buildings here. Not sure of the historical significance, but as far as I know, there are some of these buildings that also offers, yeah, accommodation, self-catering accommodation. So if you're looking to stay here on the top of Bainskloof Pass, this is the place to come. But yeah, I think there's also a commemoration to Andrew Geddes Bain here. So let's just make a stop and have a closer look. Yeah, so we just made a bit of a walk down here from the parking area. You can see the Bainskloof settlement here at the, I think it's almost the summit of the pass, but it's also here where one finds some commemoration plaques to Bainskloof Pass. Yeah, and as I mentioned, it was already started to be built in 1849 by Andrew Geddes Bain, but I see the plaque here also mentions that Andrew Geddes Bain already explored the kloof in 1846, so it was a lot of planning that went into this. And it just says that the pass reveals Bain's technological skill and knowledge of geology, and the work was done by the convicts, of course, typically how roads were built in that time. So it took some skill to build this pass. I think especially the parts that we will go and visit now on the northern side when we ride down the northern side. And then there's also a plaque here commemorating the life of Andrew Geddes Bain, 1797 to 1864, who is the architect and builder of the Bainskloof Pass. Yeah, I'm also standing here next to a plaque that was unveiled on 14 September 2003, exactly 150 years after the construction of the Bainskloof Pass was completed. And it commemorates all of those that built the pass. Of course, Andrew Geddes Bain was the builder, but it was done by convicts and their supervisors. And apparently the plaque says during the construction of this pass in that 4 years, 3 people actually lost their lives. It just shows this is dangerous work, and it's actually quite appropriate, I think, to commemorate all that has built this pass, and probably all those that built all the many passes that the Bains were involved with. So I just find that quite interesting. Now towards the northern part of the Bainskloof Pass, and again the height restrictions are shown here. Look at all the aloes. Yeah,